Okay, hey everyone. Anthony Fantano here, internet's busiest music nerd. Let's talk about an opinion here. We have one from the great rapper, musician, visionary, Mr. Donald Glover himself, who says that his album, Because the Internet, is the rap okay computer. He brought himself to this line of questioning by first talking about his poorly received debut album, Camp, which, that record is pretty awful in my opinion. It allowed me to make Because the Internet, which I think has proven itself to be a classic. It's the rap okay computer. It is prescient in tone and subject matter, and it's extremely influential. And I know no one's going to give me that until I'm dead, but it's true. I don't agree at all. If we're talking about records that are on the level of an okay computer in terms of its influence on the artsier side of the genre that you operate in and the cultural splash that it made, there are about, I would say, a dozen albums at least in your genre that would be considered first. I think Donald Glover would have to make a stronger case here in terms of like, what are the ideas, sounds, and elements from this record that you hear getting copied over again and again and again and again and again. That's not to take away from what influence the record has. It certainly does, and I think it's proven itself to have staying power for sure. There's quite a few people who will definitely be in the comments up my ass telling me that my review of the record was wrong. But even if the album has grown on me a bit over the years, and maybe there's a nostalgia factor to that, maybe there's some themes and concepts to it, I appreciate more in retrospect. But looking at current day, like, the influence, the impact, like what records from 2012, 2013, 2011 am I hearing kind of imitated again and again and again today, or even just in the last few years? My mind does not go to Because the Internet. It goes more to Yeezus. It goes more to The Money Store. Looking at the impact that each of Glover's records have had upon the time they dropped, I mean, by comparison, Awaken My Love had way bigger of a cultural splash. And the way that record made, throwing it back to such an older era, cool. And now fast forward today and we have something like Silk Sonic, for example. I don't know. I think there's maybe more of a connection or a discussion to be had, there, as opposed to trying to prop up Because the Internet as the rap okay computer. Which, if I could finally comment on just in the abstract, just generally how whack of a comparison that is. I mean, I thought part of the beauty of hip hop over the last couple of years is the fact that it has become the zeitgeist and has proven that it doesn't need to exist in the shadow of or in service of any other culture or genre or whatever. It can just kind of be itself and do its own thing and, get rewarded in the process for doing and being so. When I'm talking about To Pimp a Butterfly, for example, certainly there are comparisons to be drawn outside of the hip-hop genre just by merely it being a concept album that I think stands tall among other great classic concept albums. That album is great on its own merits. I don't look at the record and see it as like, this is really the hip-hop Pink Floyd's The Wall. There's also the question about whether or not this record is as ahead of the curve or even as like socially on point as OK Computer may have been at the time that it dropped. I will say in terms of like some of the social commentary, which is very much there, and what doses of it I catch on the record seem decent. I mean, keep in mind, like Donald Glover does have a creative world outside of music, especially at this point, and he's proven himself to be, an effective comedian and a satirist, especially through the Atlanta series. So we know Glover has the ability and a history of picking up on a social phenomenon and incorporating it into something that he's doing, pulling it apart, analyzing it, and making a comment on it. Insofar as he's doing that on this record, I feel like the most lasting element of it, as I listened to this album years and years after it came out, is some of the commentary about egocentrism and narcissism and, some of the points of view that seem to be expressed by people who are very privileged and rich and clout chasing and have nothing really to worry about in the world other than their own ennui. While I don't necessarily walk away from this album with a full picture of that kind of image, there certainly is something about the itch that Glover is scratching at. And again, given everything that was going on socially and culturally, especially in the online space around this time, I don't know if Glover was so much predicting anything with this record or giving almost like a forecast of anything in the way that OK Computer was, as much as he was just kind of accurately portraying in some aspects, something that was happening right there in the then and now, which of course also requires vision and requires talent. But, when we're talking about a record like OK Computer, we're talking about like quite a predictive record. If anything, and this is still an important thing, mind you, but if anything, because the internet, in my opinion, is not as ahead of the curve as much as it was on time. It was on time, it was present in the moment. It met the moment in a lot of ways. If it didn't, I don't think it would have an audience to this day. But yeah, that's essentially why I see because the internet as a record, not that forges anything as much as it's just kind of creatively pulling from the musical landscape that it was born out of. So yeah, I'm not crazy about this. I'm not really crazy about this at all. And I disagree. I think the comparison is an over-exaggeration, and I think the idea of doing and drawing a comparison like this is a little outdated. Those are my thoughts. That's my opinion. Over here next to my head is another video that you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, because the internet, OK Computer, forever.